Hello, guys. This is Dr. Suhail continuing with the third part of the digestive system. This topic includes digestion proper. When we talk about the digestion proper, it takes place through two processes. It takes place through two processes. One is mechanical process. One is the mechanical process, and another is the chemical process. And another is the chemical process. Let me describe these two things. First, when we eat food, when we eat food, it enters into the mouth. It enters into the mouth. From here, from the mouth, digestion starts in the mouth. It's either it's actually a combination of mechanical and the chemical processes. When food reaches in the mouth contains two parts. One is teeth and tongue. One is teeth and tongue, and the other part is the saliva. Okay, what is the function of the teeth and tongue? They mix the food. They mix the food with saliva. They mix the food with the saliva. This mixing of food with the saliva, it leads to formation of a mixture. That is called as bolus. This was asked, I don't remember in which year, but this was asked in NEET exams. What is the mixture of food after mixing with saliva called? Now we talk about the saliva. Saliva is a hot topic for the examiners, where usually questions are asked. So you have to remember three important things regarding the saliva. First, its composition. It's composed of electrolytes. Okay, it's composed of electrolytes. It's composed of an enzyme that's called as the lysozyme. And the third, it's composed of salivary amylase. You have to remember which electrolytes are present. The electrolytes that are present are sodium, potassium, chloride, and bicarbonate. These are the ions that are present in the saliva. Then this lysozyme, I've seen this question many times in your NEET UG papers. And the thing you have to remember about lysozyme is that it is antibacterial. Okay. Now we're talking about the salivary amylase. You have seen this mixing of food. It is the mechanical component of the digestion. It's a mechanical process. Now we're talking about the chemical process that takes place in the mouth. This salivary amylase, it acts on starch. And converts it into a disaccharide, yeah, maltose. It converts into a maltose. That's a disaccharide. ठीक है ना? Salivary amylase it works at a pH of 6.8, and the amount of starch that is digested is only 30%. This you have to remember, 30%, and this 6.8 you have to remember, and this antibacterial property, and this bolus. These are the questions that can be asked in your NEET exams. Now after that, this is the bolus. Now this bolus, after leaving the mouth, it enters into the pharynx. From then it enters into the esophagus. It goes into the esophagus. Okay. So bolus moving from pharynx to esophagus, there's a particular process that defines this term, that is called as deglutition. So these are the things that can be asked in your NEET exams, like what is the function of teeth and tongue, what is the action of the salivary amylase, at what pH it works, and what percentage of starch gets digested. This can be asked. Now the food has reached into the esophagus. Okay, let me draw the esophagus. Let me draw this esophagus. This is esophagus. Okay, this is bolus. What is bolus? This is the mixture of food with the saliva. Okay, what happens in esophagus? This is the upper part of. Let me tell you. This is bolus. This is the upper part of esophagus, and this is the lower part. Okay, this is upper part, and this is the lower part of esophagus. What happens actually? This upper part, it contracts. and the lower part it relaxes. Lower part it relaxes. As a result, there is a forward movement of the bolus. There is forward movement of bolus. Forward movement. This process is called as peristalsis. This process is called as peristalsis. So peristalsis is the forward movement of the food. It's the forward movement of the bolus here. This peristalsis it occurs everywhere in the GIT. Food moves in the gastrointestinal tract by a process called as peristalsis, in which the upper part contracts and the lower part relaxes. Food moves forward. This is the thing you have to remember about peristalsis. Now after that, this esophagus it opens into the stomach. This bolus it enters into the stomach. Which part of stomach it enters? It enters into the cardiac part, as I already told during the alimentary canal in lecture first. Now in the stomach, you have to remember stomach. There are some questions that are usually asked in the stomach, and that can be potential questions for NEET to 2023. So one thing you have to remember, it's here food remains for 4 to 5 hours. One thing you have to remember, food remains for 4 to 5 hours. Second term क्या होती है? There is mixing of food. There is mixing of bolus with gastric juices. There is mixing of bolus with gastric juices, which leads to formation of a mixture that is called as chyme. That is called as chyme. This can be a potential question. What is chyme? What is bolus? Yeah, this can be asked. Now, this mixing constitutes the mechanical part. This constitutes the mechanical part. Now we're talking about the chemical part. We're talking about the chemical part. Okay, I have told you earlier, the gastric juices, they are rich in pepsin. They are rich in pepsin, which is present in an inactive form, pepsinogen. Okay, so we have pepsinogen. Actually, I would like to say here pepsinogen. Okay, now pepsinogen, it's activated by HCl. It's activated by HCl at a pH of 1.8. It gets converted into pepsin. It gets converted into pepsin. What is the function of pepsin? It acts on proteins. It acts on proteins and converts them to proteosis, proteosis and peptones. Okay, peptones. You have to remember pepsinogen it requires HCl and 1.8 pH. Okay, so this happens in the stomach. Another thing that's associated with the stomach, you have to remember, there is renin and there is lipase. There is lipase. Remember, gastric juice contains lipase. Remember, gastric juice, lipase, yeah, that's present in gastric juice. Renin present in infantis. It helps in the digestion of milk proteins. It helps in digestion of milk proteins. Okay, milk proteins. These I have discussed in lecture 2, where we're talking about the digestive, where we talked about the digestive glands. Okay, so I have got this. Now after that, this chyme. Now this chyme, it reaches to small intestine. I would like to say it enters into the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. Okay, so remember, this is duodenum. This is, I told you one thing you have to remember about duodenum, it is C-shaped. That can be asked. Okay, it's C-shaped. When I taught this digestive gland, I told you all the secretions, whether it's a secretion of from liver, pancreas, pancreatic secretion. Okay, these are the liver secretions. These are from pancreas. They enter into the duodenum. Okay, they are actually secreted in the duodenum. So here this is chyme. Now inside the duodenum there are pancreatic juices, and there is bile, and further there are actually in this submucosa of duodenum there are Brunner's gland. They also secrete intestinal juice, which is called as the succus entericus. So what happens actually, now the chyme जो है, it reaches the duodenum. Here duodenum में क्या होता है? Duodenum is maximum digestion occurs in duodenum. Maximum digestion occurs in duodenum. Okay, and the later parts of the small intestine, that is jejunum and ileum, they are mostly associated with absorption. Okay, now this thing you have to remember. Now from that, This food, it enters into the large intestine. It enters into the this food enters into the large intestine. In large intestine, you have to remember there are two main functions of the large intestine. One is mucus production. One is mucus production. Mucus, what makes it? It makes it adheres food particles. And so the second important function of mucus, it is lubrication. It is lubrication. And this is one. And second, Johan, that's absorption. Second function of large intestine is absorption. Where it's absorption of water, it's absorption of electrolytes, and it's absorption of drugs. This absorption topic I'll be dealing in a separate lecture, but just to give you a rough idea what happens in the large intestine. From the large intestine, this with this undigested part of food, undigested part of food, it reaches into the rectum and then anus. Here it's called as, then it's removed in the form of feces or stool. Okay, so this was brief idea how food enters into the mouth, then into the esophagus, and then into stomach, and then into small intestine, large intestine, and then finally removed through ends. We're talking about the digestion proper. I told you this was the main topic, digestion proper. So we're talking about when we talk about food, there are four main components of the food. One is carbohydrates, second is proteins, the third part is fats, and the fourth part is nucleic acids. Nucleic acids. So first we're talking about the digestion of carbohydrates. We're talking about the digestion of carbohydrates. Okay, so we have this carbohydrates जो मेजरली इन द फॉर्म, जो mainly हमारे पास किस फॉर्म में होते हैं, they are present in the form of starch as we usually eat plants. So starch. So first it's acted upon by amylase. Okay, amylase, it's present in the in saliva, it's present in pancreatic secretions. So amylase, it converts it into a disaccharide, it converts it into disaccharide. Okay, now this disaccharide, it's acted upon by disaccharidase. It's acted upon by disaccharidase. That's the enzyme of intestine, that's called as a succus entericus. This is present in succus entericus. Okay, disaccharidase, it converts it into monosacs. We're talking about examples of this examples of carbohydrates. First example I'll give: starch, it gets converted into maltose. Maltose is acted upon by maltase enzyme. It's acted upon by the maltase enzyme and converts it into two molecules of glucose plus glucose. This is one example. Then we have lactose. Talking about the lactose, these can be asked in exam. Lactose, it's acted upon by lactase enzyme. It gets converted into glucose plus galactose. Okay, then the third example we're talking about is sucrose. Gets acted upon by sucrase and gets converted into glucose plus fructose. These three examples, they can be asked in your NEET exams. Now we're talking about the proteins. We have proteins. First, in stomach, they are acted upon by pepsin. Okay, and are converted into proteoses plus peptones. Now all these proteoses plus proteins, these are acted upon by pancreatic juice, that's called as this trypsin, carboxypeptidase, or I can say chymotrypsin, and it these are converted into dipeptides. These are converted to dipeptides. These dipeptides, it's acted by dipeptidase. It's acted by dipeptidase, which is present in succus entericus, and these are converted into its constituent amino acids. Constituent amino acids. So okay, this occurs in stomach, this in duodenum by pancreatic juices, and this is this also takes place in intestine, but this is intestinal juice. Okay, so we talk about the digestion of carbohydrates, we talk about the digestion of proteins. Now the third, we talk about digestion of fats. Fats are acted upon by lipases. Fats are acted upon by lipases and are converted into diglycerides. Converted into diglycerides. Important point to remember. These are further activated by lipases and converted into monoglycerides. Monoglycerides. Okay. Then last, we're talking about the nucleic acids. We talk about the nucleic acids. First, these are acted by nuclease. These are acted by nuclease. Remember, this is present in pancreatic secretion. Nuclease, it converts it into nucleotide. It converts into nucleotide, which is acted upon by nucleotidase. Tidase, and converted into nucleoside, which is further acted upon by nucleosidase into constituent ribose plus phosphate. Okay, so we talked about the digestion of the all the main components of food, whether it was carbohydrates, whether it was proteins, whether it was fats, or it was nucleic acids. One thing I forgot to talk about, succus entericus. What is succus entericus? Succus entericus, it's also called as intestinal juice. Intestinal juice. Okay, intestinal juice. याद रखना इसके बारे में, one point you have to remember, it works in alkaline pH. It works under alkaline pH. This alkaline pH is in turn produced by mucus and bicarbonate. This bicarbonate, it comes from pancreas. This mucus, you have to remember, there are special cells in the intestine. Those are called as goblet cells. They produce this mucus. Okay, so this mucus is produced by the goblet cells. They are present in the mucosa of the intestine, small intestine, and this bicarbonate is produced by the pancreas. So you have to remember this succus entericus. Succus entericus, it works under the alkaline condition, which is produced by these things. First thing you have to remember about it is that it works in the alkaline pH. The second thing you have to remember, it's produced by intestinal glands. It's produced by intestinal glands. Usually they are present in mucosa. They are present in mucosa, but to duodenal glands, which are also called as Brunner's glands, they are present in submucosa. You have to remember this can be the next question in NEET 2023. Okay, so I think this topic of proper digestion, it's covered. If there's something left, we'll be covering in the next lecture.